Welcome to another episode of TV Toastmasters. Tonight I have a special guest, Allison Bennet, who is not only a world traveler and a woman of many talents. Tonight she's going to talk to us a bit about her backstory before we explore what she's doing today. Welcome, Allison. It's been a while since we saw each other. I'm pleased to see you.
It has, Phyllis. I'm so glad to see you. It's so fun to see old friends and be able to connect again.
It really is. Now, the last time I saw you, I believe it was in a Toastmasters meeting.
I think it was.
And it's been, what, 2-3 years? You have been out and about and traveling. So what interested me about bringing you on tonight is the fact that you have so much background, so much back history about being on stage, and you've changed your life a number of times. You've reinvented yourself, I don't know how many times.
I think this is the 5th time.
So give me a little bit of your backstory. What brought you to whatever it was you were doing at first? Weren't you on stage? Somewhere back there you were on stage a lot.
I was. Originally I went to a high school in Seattle that at the time was predominantly drama directed. So we had 7 full shows a year, and I was involved as a director on backstage. I had small bit parts because memorizing lines, I'm dyslexic and ADHD. So memorizing lines was a challenge for me, but I was really good at telling people what to do and getting it right. So I was often a stage director or a director. And then after high school, I went to a year of college, and life changed on me, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to LA and try Los Angeles and see what I could do in the acting field. And I was one of those rare people that actually got hired on to International Theater Company.
So did they find you in a drugstore? You always hear the story of them coming in and finding a person in a drugstore.
No, I had seen a couple of their shows, and because I'm naturally gregarious, I just started chatting with the people, and they thought that I might be a good fit. So there was a whole interview process. So I had interviewed them while I was with them as a potential while I was in Seattle. So when I went down to Los Angeles, I had an idea of something that could possibly work.
So what did that do? So obviously you got hired by them, or you went to work for them, or you became a collaborator, or however you say it. But what did you do in that?
So it was an international theater company that used theater as training devices. So we actually, a lot of the theater games that people use in their business training, some of those we actually wrote ourselves and invented and went out and worked with other businesses, and it caught on. And of course, those trainings morphed. So we did a lot of that. We used plays, like commercial length plays, or even like this is an 11.5-minute segment. We would do a short play in about 11.5, 12 minutes that was thought-provoking. And then we would go out and discuss with the audience, and it was thematic. So it could be, if we were working in schools, it could be peer pressure. So for instance, we were able to work in schools in Israel, and we worked with a 5th grade class, 5th grade, those are about 10-year-old kids, and we were doing, getting along with each other, and we did a 3-minute play, and those 5th graders discussed that play for 40 more minutes.
Oh, you're kidding.
It was amazing because they just had a different way of having critical thinking, was very much a part of their curriculum.
So that brings up another question for me then, because if you're going to be a world traveler, one would think you knew many different languages. So how do you go to a foreign country and teach something like this?
Well, luckily, in the schools, we always came in as teaching English. So we were actually speaking English. That's why the plays were very, very short. And then we would do discussions, and with the discussions, the students of all ages, like little ones and big ones, would be able to use their English. We also did that in businesses. But here's the flip side. We also performed in the language of the country. So we also did workshops in businesses. For instance, I spent 3.5 years in Germany, and we did workshops and plays in German as well as in English. And it's a great way to learn a language. So if I know a play in English, I know what it means. Then I just have to memorize the sounds of it in a different language. And now the grammar is all correct because somebody else has translated it. So I just memorized the words and the sounds, and you memorize the grammar of it. And what was great is we're on stage and we're speaking perfect German because I've practiced and practiced, and then we get off stage and people come up to speak with me as if I already know German, and I don't. So I just go, oh yeah. And so I'm hoping I'm shaking my head at the right spot and nodding my head at the right spot when I first got there. And then of course, we were with an international team, so people actually spoke that language. And so we ended up speaking German a lot just amongst the team.
Well, that sounds like it was a lot of fun. So where did you go after that?
Oh, I had a chance to work in about 15 to 18 countries.
Wow.
I've been to 23 countries so far, and 4 continents. So I've got a lot more of the world left to explore. And but we worked in many of those different countries, and sometimes it was a direct translation. But what was great about this is that we had to learn so many different ways to communicate to people, to train people. So I have a plethora of tools that I can bring out to help people understand how they can communicate better, or how they can even think better.
So that takes me into a whole new topic then. So you work for this international group doing those things that you do. But when I met you, you were into coaching and mentoring.
Yes.
So how did you get from one to the other? You talked a little bit about a transition here, but so let's talk a little more about that.
So I went from being on tour, which was traveling itinerantly, to being in the national office, to being a regional director. So that means I had 7 teams of people underneath me. I was 24 at the time. Way too young to be a regional director. I chewed through my people so badly, but I learned. And then from there, that was a lot of coaching, because I had to teach people how to get along. And this is people from different cultures, different languages, complete different backgrounds. And so I worked with people on how do they get along, how they communicate, and how can they really work cohesively and become really great team members.
We really need that in today's world. Have you considered reopening that side of your life and going out and teaching our politicians a thing or two about getting along?
Well, yeah, so there's a piece of negotiation. I went back to school at 40, and I learned negotiation skills. And so some of the stuff we're seeing with the politicians is actually planned. It's a negotiating pattern. It's not my favorite pattern, but that's an interesting idea. I like business leaders better. I think I could get further with business leaders.
So what are you doing now?
Right now, I am looking at working with a good friend of mine. We're looking at opening a leadership training company.
Oh, wow.
And this has been great, because not only are we working with individual people on coaching people, and they may be perhaps they're tech people who have become managers. They're very good at doing their tech job, and now they become managers. Well, that's two different alien species. And so we are helping them transition.
Well, that sounds like something that we really need. If you're not going to train politicians, then let's get our leaders going so that they present a better world for us. You know, somebody's got to do that. And I see you as a part of that. So again, back to your beginning with me, is you were a Toastmaster.
Right.
What took you into doing that?
So there was a point when you're in the public, you get a lot of accolade, which is fabulous, and you get a lot of negative. A lot of people making up all kinds of stories about you. And at one point, it just became too much. So I was going through a divorce, and I was raising teenagers on my own. So I pulled completely out of the public, and I actually pretty much hid myself underneath a rock as much as possible. I learned how to fly under the radar at 6 foot tall. It's kind of hard to do, but I learned how to do that. And I found out that, that's not fun for me. And I had coached people to go to Toastmasters while I was being a coach. Never went to Toastmasters myself. I was terrified of going to Toastmasters. And so I thought I should take my own medicine. And I went to a Toastmasters meeting. So what drew me was the opportunity to make myself be in front of people again, But what kept me in Toastmasters was the evaluation. I needed to learn how to be able to take feedback and just take it as data, as information, and not have my whole feelings hurt or anything. So that's what was exciting. So when you met me, I'm just trying to get back out into public again.
Well, in the last minute or so that we've got left, what can you tell our viewers, one good tip about getting along? Excellent.
A great tip is, it's always just an interesting point of view. So whatever I hear you say, I can realize, oh, that's my interesting point of view of what she is saying. And it may or may not be correct. I don't know. I'm using what my mood is. Am I tired? Have I just had an argument to interpret what you have to say? And then if I can keep it as interesting point of view, then we can get along.
Well, thank you, Allison, for being here tonight. It's so great to reconnect with you. If you're interested in learning more about Allison and the work that she's doing, is there a place they can go find out?
Sure. Right now, I just launched a new company, and it's so fun, I just have to tell you about it. It's called thehappierhourcoach.com. So just thehappierhourcoach.com. No, I don't teach drinking, but I do coaching at a happier hour, so it's easier to do.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you for viewing TV Toastmasters.
Your stories can change the world. I'm Mike Goss, and I'm going to show you how. Here's what you'll learn during my 1-hour session. First, you'll learn what makes a good story. What is it that will attract an audience and touch their hearts and minds? Then you'll learn how to apply your stories across all possible media. Whether you're speaking live, whether you're on a teleconference, whether you're sitting in front of the traffic court judge, it's all the same. The skills for success are all the same. Learn to change the world with your stories. I'll see you at the D7 Toastmasters Annual Conference on April 27th.
Welcome back to TV Toastmasters. I'm Beth Junley, your host for this segment, and this year I'm also president of Toastmasters for Speaking Professionals. With me today, I have my friend Roland Jarka, who is a longtime, I think, founding member of Toastmasters for Speaking Professionals. And I'm very glad to have you with us today, Roland. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. My pleasure, Beth. Good to be here.
So today we're going to talk about the Miracle Minute, which is I don't even know what to call it, a process that you've come up with.
Very quick process.
Yes.
A 1-minute process.
Yes.
Can be longer.
And I have actually been so taken by this since I learned it from you a few years ago that I have been teaching it as well. But I'd really like to learn from the master here. Okay. So if you'd go ahead and share what it is, we're all ears.
Sure. So basically, it's a way to take some time out during the day. And I just found I was working at a job where I had very little time. It was an extremely stressful job. And I came up with the idea that I need to do something during the day to relieve my stress and to get more focused. So I said, how much time can I afford? And I said, 1 minute. 1 minute every hour. And that seems to be, that's 1/60th of the time at work. So my time, right? And then I said, well, okay, so what can I do in 1 minute? Well, I know that breathing deeply is powerful. So, okay, I'll take some deep breaths. So I close my eyes. I just took some deep breaths, and so that takes about 20 seconds, maybe, right, at the most. So that's 40 seconds, I figured, right? So then I said, well, what else works? Gratitude. Because I found that when I was stressful, I wasn't grateful for anything. I just wanted out of there, right? And I think that happens to most of us. So I started just listing to myself things that I was grateful for. And typically just one thing, and try to dig deep on something new. So when I do this, I come up with silly little things sometimes, like the pen and paper right on my desk, right? And I realize that some people in the world don't have pen and paper. So just whatever came up in that moment, I was grateful for. The fact that I could walk and talk, things that we just don't even think about. So then I said, okay, well, that's about another 10, 15 seconds. I still have got time left. What else can I do? He said, the problem in my job was that my boss at the time, the owner, wasn't very complimentary. In fact, he was a major critic versus being a support. So I said, well, I can support myself. So I asked the question, what have I just done that I acknowledge myself for? I said, good job. So, and again, it could be something very simple. I made a telephone call to somebody that was tough. Okay, that's a good thing. So that's simple. So that takes another 10 seconds or so. So I've got maybe 20 seconds left. I said, okay, what else? And then I said, well, a very important thing for me at the time was, what's the most important thing for me to do next? What's the most important thing? So then I would either write it down or just think it. And then the final part of it, and I had 10 seconds left about, and I said, so who can help me make that happen? And it doesn't have to be a real person. It could be just thinking about my wife, thinking about...
Is she not a real person?
Yeah, you're right. Well, sometimes I wonder. No. So
That's being recorded, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. I should probably watch it. So that's basically it. It's 5 steps. And in a little bit, we'll do it. Now, the reason it's so effective is because it's hitting 5 major areas that we all need. I mean, when we're all caught up with the frenzy of life, what's happening? We lose sight of even breathing, especially with the news. Like I get caught up with the Apple News, and I said, oh no, that. And then I realized I haven't been breathing very well at all. So just breathing in itself, if people who are listening right now don't do anything else but throughout the day take some deep breaths, that would be wonderful. Because we all forget to take deep breaths. Mm-hmm. There's another thing that happens when you take a break, a pause, or in this case, the miracle minute, is that you break the trance that we all get into. And that's a little tricky to get into, but we get caught up with the stories of our lives, of somebody else's life near us, maybe our kids or spouses or a neighbor, and when you get the news, people completely unrelated to us and that we have possibly no ability to change, and yet we get caught up with it. So then we're in that kind of like a mode of, it goes around and around in our brains. And so it's important to take a break and just take those deep breaths, what I call coming back to myself, just coming home. In fact, that's what comes to me sometimes when I do it. I take that deep breath and it's like, whew, I'm back. And that's important.
Shall we try it? Shall we
Sure.
go ahead and invite our audience to try it?
So just get yourself comfortable, and I'll just address the audience here, and close your eyes if it feels comfortable. And then just take a nice long deep breath. Take it in slowly right now as I count from 1 to 5. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then slowly let it out as I count out from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then one more deep breath. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. And now just ask yourself, what are you grateful for in this moment, in this very moment right now? What is something that just pops up for you? Yes. And just feel the warmth that comes from that. Feeling grateful. Okay, and then let that go. And what right now can you acknowledge yourself for? What have you done today, even this week, that you feel really good about, that you helped somebody, even you smiled at somebody? It doesn't have to be major. And just acknowledge yourself. Good. And then the next stage of what's the most important thing for you to do next? It doesn't have to be major, it's just something really simple. It could be like calling somebody and thanking them. It could be calling somebody and just appreciating who they are as a person. So or something that you really need to get done. Good. Let that go. And then finally, the last step, who can help you? Is there anybody that you need to call or ask for help to accomplish what you wanted to do? And that's it. And you can open your eyes and just note how you're feeling. And how are you feeling, Beth? Oh, that's pretty seizure. Maybe you shouldn't do it out there.
I'm sorry. Other than that little cough,
Yeah.
I'm feeling much more centered in my body and just really pleased with life and much more here. I feel much more here. I was thinking about the next question or the next guest or all these things, and now I'm just here.
Good. Well, that's great. I mean, I think that's a very powerful thing to experience, and it's something that is so simple. It took, well, that might have taken a little bit more than a minute, but not much more. And you can do this throughout the day. When I was doing it at that job where I developed it, I was doing it every hour on the hour. I set my watch to chime, and I would just pause and take my 1 minute because I deserve that 1 minute, right? And obviously you can take longer. I have somebody I shared it with that would spend about an hour going through all the steps. I mean, you can do deep breathing for a full hour if you want, and it's very healing. So every step has got major benefits from it. And in terms of getting in touch with your body, feeling present, really getting focused on what's the most important thing. So for me, the most important thing in this time right now is to just allow people to take this idea of pausing, and if they like the Miracle Minute, good, use it. If there's something else you want to do at that time, do it. But take the time for yourself. That's the key.
That is beautiful. And in our last few seconds here, already, boom, our Miracle Minutes just went right by.
Yeah.
I know people are going to be interested in asking you questions about this, learning more about it, and I know you're writing a whole book about it that's coming about the Miracle Minute. So how can people find out?
So they can, probably the easiest way is you can go online and watch YouTube on Miracle Minute. You can go to my website, which is rolandjarkaphd.com. And that's ROLANDJARKA.com, PhD.com, sorry. So that's the easiest way, probably.
Beautiful. So you all can see just why I think that Roland Jarka is a wonderful person and fascinating to talk to. Thank you for joining us on TV Toastmasters.
Hello, I'm Lisa Steindorf, and I'd like to invite you to attend my session, 3 Keys to Better Results, The Art of Direct Communication. When you attend this workshop, you will learn the real secret to how communication works. You'll learn easy tools to make it work best in any situation, and also you'll learn how to avoid and deal with conflict if it does arise. So you'll find ways to hear better, to be heard better, and generally to feel better when communicating with others. So please do join me at Unleashed Potential, the District 7 Spring Conference on April 27th at Camp Withycombe, Clackamas. For more information about the conference, go to d7toastmasters.org.